I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm going to say it. I think Waymo is going to start to be a pretty big issue for drivers in 2026. I want to say I'm driving right now. I also have my gym outfit on. I'm going to the gym, hence my kind of random tank top I have. But anyway, I want to make this video because the whole topic of self-driving cars, AI taking over people's jobs and whatnot, is a very hot topic right now at the time of this video. And right now, at the time of this video, we're about halfway through 2025. And the thing is, Waymo has really started to take over, right? I mean, if you look at the major cities that Waymo's in right now, at least at the time of this video, we have LA, San Francisco, you have Phoenix, you have Austin, and now Atlanta. And in addition, at the time of this video, they're now looking to expand in Miami, Washington, D.C., and then next, at the time of this video, they're also now testing in Philadelphia and New York. Basically, some of the biggest cities in the United States. And this is something that I will say is going to be causing a lot of issues for a lot of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers in those areas. And I do have to mention that because I think in 2026, Waymo has been getting bigger and bigger almost every week, almost every month. Like I said, on average right now, there's about 250,000 Waymo rides that happen every week. So about 1 million plus rides happening every month. And that is increasing day by day. I just did a video literally yesterday talking about their new kids feature, or more teens, I guess I'd say, that they're rolling out in Phoenix, but will spread to other areas where now if you're 14, 15, 16, or 17, your parents can sign you up and you can take a Waymo under their name. And one thing I mentioned in that video is I can see a lot of parents saying, hey, this is great because I don't trust my 14-year-old daughter to be in an Uber or Lyft alone. Things should be okay, statistically speaking, but I trust them being more in a Waymo where they're by themselves. I don't have to worry about another individual being in the car if they're good or bad, etc., etc. Waymo is spreading incredibly rapidly. And in addition, like I have mentioned in other videos too, which is a big thing, Waymo right now is statistically speaking more expensive than Ubers and Lyfts. However, through a huge study done by Obi, who studies price differentials when it comes to Uber, Lyft, Waymo, etc., they found that even though Waymo is more expensive, people are willing to spend an upcharge. They're willing to spend more money to be in a Waymo. And it could be the novelty of it, which wears off pretty quick. But I think the biggest thing is just the privacy. It's maybe the convenience of getting in it and not having to put on a front of like, hey, how are you? How's your day going so far? In addition, Waymos are, statistically speaking, safer than human drivers when it comes to accidents and a lot more. I think the biggest thing, though, if I had to predict it, if I had to guess, I think most people are not getting a Waymo because of the, decrease in accident potential. I genuinely think it's the privacy. You have it to yourself. If you want to do a business call, you can. Also, these places are very tech forward, like LA and San Fran, for example. And people have money here, a lot of money. So I think people are like, hey, an extra $10 for Waymo doesn't bother me. And especially, like say, if you're a celebrity or an influencer or whatever, you might not want to be recognized, etc., etc. There's a lot of advantages to Waymo, but there's also a lot of advantages to an Uber and Lyft driver. And I want to say this because one big issue that's becoming a lot more prevalent in the Uber and Lyft world is there being too many drivers on the road, too many cooks in the kitchen. In the sense that there is just too many people on the road right now doing rides. And I know a lot of Lyft and Uber drivers have commented on this channel saying, hey, Mark, I'm not gonna lie, it's becoming a huge issue for me. I used to be nonstop with the rides on Friday nights. Now it's hard to get one. Now I have to wait longer to get on another ride. Now I'm working, double that I used to make almost less money or the same money. I'm now working 80 hours a week to make what I made a couple years ago in only 40 hours. In addition, prices have gone up for maintenance of your car, et cetera, right? So things are not looking good for Uber and Lyft drivers. And I'd say over time, I've been like, okay, you don't have to worry. Like in 2022, 2023, I was like, nah, you don't have to worry at least right now. And then last year I was like, okay, just keep it on your radar. And then this year I'm like, it's starting to become a bit of a worry. And I feel like next year is where things are really going to have a huge paradigm shift, where people are getting more comfortable getting in a self-driving car. People are using the app a lot more. people are learning about Waymo a lot more. People are, hate to say it, liking it more. And I think then the biggest thing is Waymo, now that they figured a lot out, they figured out their secret formula, like the Krabby Patty secret formula, if I had to word it like that, because now they figured it out. They have the Jaguar I-Pace, which is their current model that they're using, but now they're testing out the Zeekr vehicle. I just did a video about that. They're kind of a new one. I saw it personally here in LA, in El Segundo and Playa Vista. They're testing it out. And that vehicle is, in my opinion, I think it looks cooler. I've not been inside of it yet, but it looks cooler than the Jaguar I-Pace, in my opinion. Also looks like a van. So maybe they're going to have Waymo regular, then Waymo XL. I think that would definitely be the thing that they're going to be doing. That's just my theory. So Waymo's moving fast. And the fact that now they've figured out their kind of method, their economics, the way they operate things, they've figured out how to just run stuff in a very efficient manner. They're spreading city to city. And this is going to be causing a huge issue because for a lot of drivers who drive full time, they do in major cities, right? Again, I've said this so many times. If you live in a remote part of Iowa or Ohio, you're not going to make that much. Your location is the number one factor that determines how much money you can make. And when people ask me, what are the big cities? Like the big cities to drive for Lyft and Uber, if you're looking to maximize your income, like I've even had people reach out to me saying, hey Mark, I drive full time and I love it. I love driving for Uber. I love driving for Lyft. I'm actually considering relocating to try to make more money. Where should I live? And I usually say, okay, Boston, Vegas, San Francisco, Los Angeles, maybe not as much Miami, I'd say, Chicago, these major cities. Even San Diego actually is a decent one. So these are the major cities. But here's the thing. All these major cities, like New York, for example, arguably the biggest city. I think it is the biggest city in America. Now Waymo's attacking all of those. And it's become this odd thing now where if you live in one of these hotspots, which typically is considered one of the best places to drive, like San Fran, arguably was for years the best place to drive for Lyft and Uber. I think now it's not becoming the worst, but it's becoming less and less favorable. It's becoming less and less favorable because you're like, shoot, I used to get tons of rides, used to make a ton of money driving for Uber and Lyft. Then there were too many cooks in the kitchen, too many drivers on the road, and it's been getting harder since maybe 2023-ish, give or take. Tail end of 2023, beginning of 2024 is when the too many cooks in the kitchen became an issue. And then add Waymo on top of that, there's 250,000 rides happening with Waymo every week. That is spanned out between those 5 cities that it's in right now, but I would not be surprised if that's going up to actually 300,000 rides a week. And as you can imagine, there's 300,000 rides that are directly taken from Uber and Lyft drivers. That's 300,000 rides that I'm averaging. I'm guessing. This is my guess right now as Waymo's expanding a lot, especially now that it's in Atlanta. That's 300,000 rides that might have gone or probably would have gone to an Uber and Lyft driver that are now being taken from Waymo. And here's a heartbreak. This is not going to slow down. With the public knowing about it more, becoming more comfortable, like all these kind of things I've said, it's not like it's going to be one of those things that maybe, it's going to be a fad and then it kind of goes away and then becomes. This is going to get better and better with Waymo making more vehicles, with the public knowing about it more, with all of these things happening with Waymo that's just growing the popularity of it. And I hate to say it, from what it seems like as well, based on all the analytics, the classic saying in business is the best customer is a returning one or a repeat customer. And it seems like with Waymo, that's even more so the case, right? When it comes to ride sharing, if you think of it from an economical business perspective, ride sharing isn't the kind of thing that you just buy once, right? If you think of it like a car, you typically buy a car once until it, hits the bed. Then you buy another car, you typically buy it once. It's a one-time thing. But if you look at a product like ride sharing, if I were like that, or a service, I guess, it's a repeating thing. It's something you get a lot very frequently, depending on your day, your schedule, whatever. And I think the thing is, because Waymos are now being more favored by people, even though they're more expensive, and it's the kind of thing that more people are going to say, hey, I took a Waymo once, and now I'm never going back to Uber and Lyft. That is a very, very common mindset, and a very common thread you're seeing throughout all these different analytics that a lot of companies are showing. And I hate to say it, that is something to be aware of. And I'll say this, I would not be surprised in 20 or 30 years almost like Minority Report or one of those, future movies or futuristic movies, where I would not be surprised if they look back now in 2025 and say, man, remember when they used to have human drivers? Like, you trusted a human behind a moving vehicle going 60 miles an hour on the highway? You trusted a human for that? I would not be surprised if that could be an actual mindset in 30 or 40 years. And with Waymo, again, showing these statistics, and Waymo's not perfect. I want to say that. Waymo's far from perfect, don't get me wrong. But it's perfect enough that people are feeling safer, both outside the vehicle, if I'd word it like that, like externally. They're feeling external safety from there being less of a chance of you getting into an accident, et cetera, but also internally, right? As we all know, there's been a lot of incidents of Uber and Lyft drivers having reports of physical assault, sexual assault, and a lot more. That's why a lot of people are favoring Waymo. And I think this is something I'm going to say. I think next year is, when we're really going to see it being a huge, huge issue. Now, I know it's already happening right now. I know for some of my drivers right now, if you're in LA, if you're in San Fran, if you're in Phoenix, Austin's a little different because of the way Waymo operates, because it's through the Uber app, but also Atlanta. If you're in these cities, I think especially, I'm going to say LA and San Fran, if you're in those cities, and Phoenix, if you're in those cities, I could see you already having an issue with it. I could see you already kind of being like, dang, like there's way less rides to go around. Even more than before, there's way less rides to go around. I feel like I'm working more to get paid less. That's becoming more and, of course, more popular. So this I'm going to be aware of, and I feel like in 2026, that's what's going to hit the fan. Now, what's going to happen at that point? Honestly, I don't know. I don't see this. The cat's already out of the bag. And I hate to say it, I don't see things ever getting any better. I don't like to sound pessimistic or spread FUD or fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but I have to be realistic that things are only going to get worse for Uber and Lyft drivers, especially in those areas, and especially in the major cities that Waymo's targeting. It's one of those things where, for me, I don't drive anymore, but if I did, and I heard that my city was going to be targeted by Waymo and they're doing testing, I'd immediately be like, okay, let me kind of think ahead. Let me play chess, not checkers, because, I started driving in Boston, right? 2015 was the beginning that I started driving, January of 2015. Waymo's not targeted Boston yet, but if I heard that Waymo is doing testing in Boston, which, by the way, the Boston roads are atrocious, they're going to have to do a lot of testing for Waymo in Boston. And I will say this too, Boston drivers are the most aggressive drivers in the country, in my opinion. So they're going to have to deal with, like, the mass holes, as we're called, the mass holes on the streets. So they're gonna have to they're probably gonna have to have like a mass hole algorithm for Waymo. But anyway, if I heard that now still driving in Boston, and I heard that Waymo was now doing testing in Boston because they're trying to roll out Waymo in Boston at some point, I would start to think, okay, I need to find another job. I'm gonna be honest. That'd be my mindset. Now, is it gonna happen right away? No. It is gonna be a slow transition. You're still talking about people hearing about Waymo, learning about Waymo, downloading the app, creating a whole new account, adding in your credit card information, being safe and comfortable to get to Waymo. There's still a lot of steps that have to happen, but I've been noticing with Waymo, although it's still, at the end of the day, a gradual transition from human drivers to AI robot drivers, at the end of the day, I've been noticing it's pretty rapid. Once people, like I said, the best customers are returning one. Once someone takes a Waymo, statistically speaking, they're like, hey, this was awesome. The whole thing to myself, it felt private. I love this. I'm going to spend more money now. Even if a Waymo is more expensive, I'm going to spend more money now, and there's no turning back. It's almost like once someone takes one or two Waymo rides, they're hooked, and they're not ever going to take an Uber and Lyft ride ever again. That's what the statistics are showing. And that is something to be aware of, right? So I hate to say it. If let's say you are an Uber and Lyft driver in these areas, or in these potential areas that Waymo is going to be rolled out to, you should be worried, especially for 2026. I hate to say it. Again, I'm not trying to sound pessimistic. I'm not trying to scare people, but I have to be realistic of how fast things are moving with Waymo. Even for me as a YouTuber, I study something called SEO, Search Engine Optimization. Basically, how do I have my videos rank high on YouTube? That's pretty much what it is. And one aspect of SEO is something called keyword analysis, where I can see, like, okay, how much or how often does someone search for a given keyword? When I look at Waymo, there's been more and more searches for Waymo every month. At first, it was like maybe 100,000 searches a month. Then it became 200,000 searches a month. Now, at the time of this video, it's almost at 1 million searches a month on YouTube and on Google. Because a lot of people now are hearing about Waymo. They're learning about it. They're learning about this self-driving stuff. And here's the thing, I've not even brought up in this video things like Tesla. Tesla is also looking to kind of rival Waymo in the rideshare market. And I still think, if you look at the analytics, and I have studied this, Waymo's light years ahead of Tesla for ride-sharing or self-driving taxis, self-driving rideshare vehicles. Light years ahead. They figured it out in a way, Waymo's light years ahead. But here's the thing, and this is something that has been brought up, and I have mentioned in some videos. Let's say Tesla does figure it out. Whether it is as good as Waymo or not, debatable. But let's say Tesla does figure it out. There's been talks where Tesla says, hey, if you're a Tesla owner, you can rent out your car. You hit a button, your Tesla leaves your house, does all these ride shares, kind of like a Waymo, comes back, you just made passive income sitting on your butt while doing Netflix. If that happens, you're talking about a whole fleet now of Teslas all around the country. Just sounds almost like a dystopian thing or utopian. You could argue if it's good or bad. It kind of reminds me of like iRobot, that kind of movie with Will Smith, where it's like all these Teslas now around the country are, boom, greenlit to just go out and drive, make Tesla money, and make the owner of that vehicle money. If that happens, and that could happen out of nowhere, that would be catastrophic to Uber and Lyft drivers. Because right now, the biggest issue with Waymo is its inventory, right? With Uber and Lyft, the reason why it blew up so fast, among a lot of reasons, I think it's because they didn't have to have inventory. You would use your car to do the thing. So you kind of were taking advantage of people's already existing inventories. This is also why I think Airbnb blew up so fast. They didn't have to create the hotels or apartments. They already existed. With Waymo, they have to create the Jaguar I-Paces. They're working on the Zeekr vehicles right now, the vans that I just talked about in a couple videos ago about these unreleased Waymos. So they still have to do a lot of stuff for this to happen. But in general, though, their inventory is growing fast. And if Tesla does roll that out, that's gonna be crazy. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but you might be watching this video being like, well, what can I do? I do have a video listed below in the description talking about 15 different gig economy type jobs similar to Uber and Lyft. Like where it's a flexible schedule, great pay, etc. That video is about an hour long. There was a lot of research that went into it. So I suggest watching that video. Another thing I will say, which I know I personally hate, I'll be honest, I hate, is Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, basically delivery driving. That is something that I think is, I don't want to say AI proof, but that is something that I think is very, 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 very secure. I feel like at least for the next 10 years, at the least. Because if you think about it, you have to get there, get outside, go inside. That alone means you need some type of robot to do that interaction. Unless maybe Uber Eats rolls out something where the employee of the restaurant has to come out and bring it to the vehicle, but that seems kind of dumb. People like the convenience of Uber Eats, right? So the Uber Eats driver has to drive to the restaurant, park, walk in, make sure they grab the right things, walk out, drive to the person's residence, and then let's say it's not just a house where they still have to drop it off on the doorstep, but let's say it's apartment 34, and an apartment complex, they have to get up, walk and find apartment 34 at the door, place it down, maybe knock, blah, blah, blah. I think delivery driving might start to be the more popular choice because you have this delivery driving versus rideshare driving debate happening all the time. For me, did not like delivery driving when I did it. Did not like it at all. Neither is a thing. I know some people who love delivery driving and whatnot. And I think when it comes to like deliveries like that, they have been testing it now. I did a video about this, like I think a year, 2 years ago, where it's like this weird little box robot thing that can drive on the like the sidewalk. It's kind of weird. Where like I think the restaurant literally has to like put it in it, the door shuts and it drives to the person's place. That has been something that's getting more popular, but it is very, 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 very tricky, vague. There's a lot of trickier things, I think, at the end of the day, because the difference between delivery driving and rideshare driving, especially regarding AI and robots, is with rideshare driving, you're used to leaving your house to get in the vehicle and then leaving the vehicle to get to your destination after you get to your destination, right? So if I'm going to a bar, I want to be safe and responsible. I have to leave my house to get in the Waymo. The Waymo brings me to the bar. I have to leave the Waymo then to get in the bar. The difference with delivery driving is you're expecting the delivery driver to do all that for you, where they have to leave their car to get the food, get back in their car, bring it to your house. They then leave the vehicle to put it on your doorstep. They get back in their car. And I think as a result of that, I think if I'm going to word it like this, I think delivery driving is a bit more AI proof. I don't want to suggest that, that I know this video is going on a bit longer than I'd want to, but I do want to be very honest that I think that you can't look away from this anymore. If you are a rideshare driver, you can't be like, oh, Waymo, Schmamo, whatever. Maybe it will affect me, maybe it won't. I would be very worried, especially for 2026. If you're in one of these cities that it's already existing in, or if you're in one of these cities that's going to be rolled out in, like I said, Philadelphia and New York, and now even potentially Washington, D.C., and potentially a lot more, I would start looking at other options. Maybe look at delivery driving. Maybe you like it as much. Maybe you don't like it as much. Maybe you like it more than rideshare driving. Depends upon the person. A lot of things can be played, but there's one thing I can say for sure. At the end of this video, to kind of sum it all up. One, Waymo's here to stay. I might as well even say this. Self-driving cars are here to stay. Not just Waymo, but Tesla could roll something out. You never know. So one, self-driving cars are here. And two, they're only going to get more popular, which equals one thing. Hate to say it, but when you look at AI versus humans, things are only going to get worse for human Uber and Lyft drivers.